Hey, I just got a reminder for Szechuan McNugget sauce on my iPod, so I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm probably gonna do a taste test, and that'll be tomorrow's video. Providing the Szechuan sauce actually comes to my shit little town. It's kind of cool to look at at night, though. I guess anything is. But yeah, I'm from a big city, so I'm not not really a fan. I'm not from like New York or anything big, but like it's pretty big. It's one of the, in fact, fastest growing cities in the country. Anyway, it's beside the point. Um, we're doing New Warriors Day. I love this goddamn book. I have a ton of New Warriors books. Like, well, okay, they're under me, but I have as much of that as I do Iron Man, I would say. So I have quite a bit of New Warriors stuff. Anyway, so this is issue 1. It says introducing Night Thrasher, who's a great hero, by the way. But it says introducing Night Thrasher. Not so. I don't know if he appeared in costume or not. But Dwayne appeared. Night Thrasher appeared in a previous Marvel comic before this. He appeared in some issue of Thor by DeFalco. But anyway, we have a pretty cool team here. We have Firestar. We have Nemorta. We have, well, Nemora is how I usually say it, or Nemorta, but there's an I in there, so maybe it's Nemortia. I've never heard it verbalized. I've just always called her Nemorta. Nova, or Kid Nova, as he's referred to here. This is Richard Rider. Speedball. Marvel Boy and Night Thrasher, of course. Speedball, or Marvel Boy is gonna do something very cool in this issue. Just kidding. By the way, this is the it's really sliding around my desk. Probably the slightly laminate cover. Is that a word, laminate? It's not laminated, but it feels like plasticky material. Anyway, so we start the issue with Night Thrasher. Oh, I forgot to say, yeah, this is not the original cover. The I think I got this was $3. And the normal cover was $5, and I wanted to spring for the normal cover, and I really wish I did now, because the normal cover's worth like $12 and this one's worth $4 or $5. But yeah, anyway, I was at a con and I didn't want to put all my dollars into one purchase, so I just got the gold cover, much like I did the silver cover of Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. Anyway, so we see Night Thrasher. He's got a little knife coming out of his gauntlet. And he's like, answer the question. Are you Richard Rider? Yeah. So it's important to note that at this point, Richard Rider had lost his powers, and he tried to get Reed to fix them. But they were locked so deep within Richard Rider that not even Reed Richards could unsuppress them. So Night Thrasher comes up here and he drops him off a roof, hoping that his powers will kick in, and thankfully they do. And he becomes Nova again. And he's like, how did you know I wouldn't just die? And he's like, I didn't. You what? And he takes him and flips him, which is cool. And we establish what a badass Night Thrasher is. And we catch up with Marvel Boy outside of Avengers Mansion. There's a hot dog vendor there. Take note of that. Actually, take note of everything in these books. They're very detailed books. Oh, by the way, the artwork is by Mark Bagley, who's my all-time favorite comic book artist. Now, his art in this isn't as good as it is in say like Ultimate Spider-Man or whatever, but it's still really quality stuff. Anyway, yeah. So Marvel Boy's floating up to Avengers Mansion, and he's like, "Oh boy, when the Avengers see what I can do, they'll have to accept me." And then he, fights out the security systems, but they oh jeez, that noise. They overwhelm him. I'm actually gonna put the bag and board under the issue. There we go. I could edit that out. Maybe I will. I don't know. Anyway, he gets overwhelmed by the security, and Captain America comes out. He's like, "Oh boy, golly, it's Captain America, and he's not a Nazi." And he's like, "Oh boy, you know who I am?" He's like, "Yes, I do, son. You know, Ben Grimm told us all about you. We like to keep updated files on all the supers hanging about in New York." He's like, "Oh boy, that's exciting. Can I join the Avengers? You know, I'm really good." He's like, "Well, you know, son, we're not. You're a little young, but come back in a few years, and we'll definitely talk about a position for you on the team." He's like, "Ah, I was such an idiot to go in there like that, like I owned the place." So, Night Thrasher and Nova are on the rooftop, and they meet up with Marvel Boy. And the hot dog vendor was. We'll learn later that the hot dog vendor was planted there by Night Thrasher to gather data on Avengers Mansion and the goings on of that area. Anyway, we see Namorta here, just hanging about. It's not really important. I probably should have skipped that page for copyright reasons. But anyway, we're in Midtown Manhattan, and there's actually a lot of detail in the background here. A little bit of, because it was the 90s, a little bit of ink leakage or bleedage, but yeah. Anyway, so we're in Night Thrasher's base, and we sort of learn a little bit about his backstory. Like, he's a vigilante because his parents were murdered, and his legal guardians give him this equipment and stuff, and his legal guardians appear to be her and him, and he's like the tech guy of the group, and Marvel Boy's familiar with technology, so they bond very quickly, and he takes a liking to Marvel Boy, but he dislikes Nova. Anyway, so they're looking up their next recruit, and I'm gonna actually skip those pages. But essentially what happens is they call Namorta, or sorry, not Namorta. They call Firestar on her phone, Angelica's phone at home, and they're like, "Oh, we know who you are, and so will everybody else if you don't meet us here in 30 minutes." And she's like, "Oh no!" So she rushes out to meet them, and that was Night Thrasher's plan. Obviously, he wasn't going to reveal her identity. I mean, we catch up with Namorta in Queens, and we see like this weird demolition vehicle that shaves up road and looks for radioactive material, but their explanation of the science is just really weird. Sorry about that. It will pinpoint in all forms of radioactive contamination in the soil, and it does this somehow through electromagnetics. So I don't think electromagnetic fields are disturbed by radiation, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so the machine digs up this piece of radioactive contamination, as was stated, and he comes out of the ground. He's like, "I'm alive." Terex has returned. So Namora springs off to fight, but yeah. So they're hanging out at this point on this building, and I forget what the address was, but it was the Ambrose building. Anyway, so Firestar shows up and melts a hole through the pillar, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And they're like, "It was his idea." They're like, "Oh, you know, join our super team or whatever." So they get an alert about what's going on over in Namorta's situation in Queens. So naturally, they launch into action. So Speedball is in town with his mom, and they're looking at TVs, and his mom's not really paying attention to him. But well, I actually didn't recognize this character until he constructed his axe out of whatever bullshit. So I was completely confused for a while about what he was talking about. He's yeah, some Fantastic Four villain. Doesn't matter. Um anyway, so his mom's like, "Oh, yeah, whatever. Just go off and do whatever. You know, I'm gonna look at TVs." He's like, "Awesome." So Speedball's powers use kinetic energy. So he trips himself over like this guy with a bunch of boxes, like a douchebag, to activate his powers, and he bounces off to build kinetic energy to create bigger bounces. But he could have just crashed into a dumpster or something in an alleyway. um, so he's obviously making quick work of the New Warriors as it is, but Namorta is actually strong enough to fight back against him. And Marvel Boy or Night Thrasher gets fucking tossed, and he's about to be obliterated on the sharp edge, but Marvel Boy catches him. And one thing to note is that Marvel Boy can create force fields, and this will become important soon. So Speedball shows up to the fight, and he's I love Speedball. He's bouncing all over the place, beating the crap out of this guy, or at least the guy can't really catch him sufficiently because he's bouncing all over the goddamn place. But yeah, Marvel Boy does something really clever here, where when Speedball makes a like a force field generate from his kinetic energy. Marvel Boy contains his force field because he realizes that kinetic energy seems to be damaging the Terrax. So he holds him and sort of lets him shake around and try to escape. And it builds up so much that he lets it go in one direction, and it blasts out like a big essentially like a nuclear bomb out of one side, and launches it into Terrax, and it kills him. But it's like he was never alive in the first place, so the heroes are left morally fresh, morally irresponsible for what they did, so they're fine. He can still respect them as people. So they throw him up into the sky and he explodes, which is weird because he was clearly like crispy here, and then he's fine again when they throw him. There's a bit of continuity. Anyway, so the Avengers show up. They're like, "Yeah, we'll take the situation from here, kids." I'm gonna skip this page over here. They're like, "Yeah, well, that's what you do, isn't it? You show up and you take credit for crap." Anyway, so they join hands and agree to become a team, which is what Night Thrasher was trying to do. He's trying to assemble a crime fighting team to stop all wrongdoing or whatever, which is a bit of a naive goal for a bunch of teenagers, but whatever. So they're trying to come up with a name, and earlier on the news, Speedball heard this reporter lady say, "Who are these new warriors who have emerged in Queens to fight this guy?" So he's like, "Oh, how about we call ourselves the New Warriors?" He's like, "Okay, end of discussion." In the beginning of a legend. Anyway, I knew I was gonna like this issue when I read it, because I've read other New Warrior stories. It's just until recently I hadn't had the first issue. I really like the New Warriors a lot. One of my favorite 90s comics, probably. Look at that. Oh, by the way, there's very much a will they won't they thing between Nova and Namorta throughout the entire series pretty well. But also, you'll find like that this roster will shake up a little bit as well throughout the series. Like Marvel Boy won't be there so much, and there's a bit where Namorta leaves, and there's a character called Rage that comes in. And there's a little nerd guy who hangs out with Night Thrasher or Speedball. I can't remember which. I think it's Night Thrasher though. Anyway, the point is, there's a whole big cast of people who who are part of this team at one point or another. I really like this book. I like the art. It's not the strongest Mark Bagley's done, but you can tell the faces are really good. And well, there was this one page that I didn't show with Angelica and Firestar in her house, and he draws her very much like he draws Mary Jane in the Amazing Spider-Man series from around the same time. So you can you can instantly recognize Mark Bagley art wherever you see it. Actually, he drew Mark Waid's Hulk series as well, which I really liked. Despite how you feel about Mark Waid as a person. Anyway, yeah, good book. Solid B plus, I think, from this. Anyway, B plus to A minus. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.